Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Horror Stories. I know many of you use these episodes to fall asleep, so before you drift off, I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the episodes. Story 1. I started doing food deliveries because it was simple. Drive, pick up the order, drop it at the door, and get paid. I did it after my main job to earn some extra cash. Most of the time, it seemed harmless enough. I had my little routine, a full tank, the phone mount on the dashboard, a cheap raincoat in the trunk, and a thermal bag for the orders. I drove a 2008 Corolla with a stubborn check engine light that never went off, and windshield wipers that screeched every time they swept across the glass. Nothing fancy, but reliable enough. That night, the rain fell in a way that made the streets look like mirrors. The weather app predicted a heavy downpour for hours, the kind that turns headlights into smudges across the windshield and multiplies the glare of every brake light. I had already done a couple of short trips around town and was about to head home when the app pinged with a rain bonus. The pay was higher than usual if I took one more order. It was late, almost midnight, and my cuffs were already damp. But money is money. I accepted. The pickup was at a burger joint off the highway. The place had only one employee scrubbing the grill and a bored cashier at the counter. They handed me a stapled paper bag and a small drink in a cardboard tray. The bag radiated warmth in my hand. I checked the address on the app. It was on the outskirts of town, past the old neighborhoods, toward an area with half-built houses and big lots. I knew that part well. Fewer streetlights, longer driveways, tall trees leaning over the road. The rain beat against the windshield like static noise. I drove slowly. The pavement had that oily film you can smell when rain lifts it. Water pooled near the curbs, and the tires hissed as they sliced through. The defroster couldn't keep up, so at every stoplight I wiped the inside of the glass with an old t-shirt. The wipers shrieked and slapped with each swing. It was one of those drives where time stops being just the clock. Each minute stretches because you're alert to every detail. Was that a branch in the road or just a shadow? Are my headlights dimmer than usual? Is that fog on the inside or the outside? I found myself leaning forward, chin close to the wheel, as if that could help me see better. The last turn was onto a narrow road winding through tall pines. No sidewalks, no houses at first. Just mailbox numbers glinting back in my headlights. The address was at the end. An old small house tucked to the side behind a cluster of trees. A chain-link fence marked the front, and the gate stood open. The porch light flickered under the rain, buzzing each time it blinked on, then off again, like it couldn't make up its mind. I pulled into the driveway and left the engine running. The heater tapped softly, and that tired rhythm it made when it was worn. I grabbed the bag and the drink, nudged the car door with my shoulder, and dashed into the icy rain, needles stinging my face. The porch steps were slick. The light above the door flickered once more and steadied, casting a pale circle that barely reached the edges of the platform. I could hear the steady drumming of the storm against the tin roof. I knocked with my knuckles. "Delivery," I said. The word sounded small against the roar of the rain. No answer. I knocked again, harder. Cold seeped through my damp jacket from the door. I leaned in, listening, and caught something on the other side. A shuffle, like someone shifting their feet on a rug or turning in freezing mid-step. Then a faint jingle, like a chain brushing against a doorknob. "Hello," I said. "Order for Daniel." My breath fogged the narrow window by the door. I wiped it with my sleeve and tried to peer inside, but it was pitch dark. The porch light flickered again, dimmed then returned. I stood there, the warm bag in my left hand and the condensation slick cup in the other. The house didn't feel empty, but it didn't feel normal either. It was like a held breath. I waited a few more seconds, then did what I usually do when a customer doesn't respond late at night. I placed the bag on a little plastic chair by the door, snapped a quick photo for proof on the app, and typed the message, "Food at your door. Enjoy." As I typed, I heard that faint movement again inside. The hairs on my neck bristled, but I told myself it was just an old floorboard creaking or someone taking their time to come over. Maybe they didn't want to talk. Maybe they were in the bathroom. There's always an explanation. I turned to leave. My shoes squeaked on the wet porch wood. That childish feeling of being watched crept in, like the darkness had eyes. Rain leaked through the roof edge and struck my cheeks. I stepped carefully down the stairs and ran back to the car. The porch light flickered and buzzed as I slammed the car door shut. Inside, everything felt familiar again. The heater blowing on my face, the faint staleness of old fast food lingering from who knows when, the radio low enough to hear the road. I set the cup in the holder and shifted into reverse. Gravel crunched and slid under the tires before catching traction. I merged back onto the empty road. I hadn't gone even 100 meters when my phone buzzed in my pocket. A notification slid across the screen. Thanks, but I canceled that order hours ago. Who was at my door? When I saw the message, I thought I had misread it. The words were simple, but my brain refused to process them. I checked the name. It matched exactly with the one on the receipt. The order time was logged earlier with 2 later updates. I never received a cancellation notification. Sometimes the app lagged in bad weather, but the message was clear. At a red light, I typed with my thumb. I just left it on your porch. Address in the system. It doesn't show as canceled on my end. 3 dots began to blink on the screen. The rain hammered the roof and hood with a heavy, constant roar. The reply came through. That's not my address anymore. I moved last month. I canceled. I'm looking at my doorbell camera right now. Someone's knocking at my door. Is that you? My stomach froze in a way the heater couldn't fix. If he had moved, then whose house had I just walked up to? And who was inside, standing silently on the other side of the door, listening to me say that name? The light turned green and I drove forward slowly, like moving underwater. A long branch leaned over the road, and its tip scraped the roof with a dry scratch that didn't fit with the wet all around. It startled me. I didn't reply immediately because something else happened. A new smell filled the car. It wasn't food, nor the cheap pine air freshener dangling from the mirror. It was the smell of wet earth and stagnant water, like a basement or ditch. It crept from the back, slow like fog slipping under a door. I looked in the rearview mirror. At first, I only saw the familiar shape of the back seat, dark, with the headrests and my jacket tossed to one side. But the shape shifted. It rose slowly, a darkness even denser than the shadows. Water streamed from it, glinting in the dashboard light in thin threads. A hood or hair? I couldn't tell. It leaned forward between the 2 front seats, close enough that I felt the air bend, as if space itself warped. I didn't slam the brakes. I didn't scream. Something inside me went still, like when you stand too close to a cliff and your body knows before your mind. I clenched the wheel until my knuckles ached. We moved together for a few endless seconds. The figure was so close I could hear the drag of soaked fabric. Neither of us spoke. Only the engine, the wipers, and my breathing existed. And suddenly my breathing was too loud. My first thought was absurd. Did I lock the doors? That was a habit when parking, not driving. My second thought was sharper. Don't crash. Don't look back too much. Keep the car moving. Get to where there are people. I eased off the accelerator while my eyes searched the road. I remembered a 24-hour gas station 2 miles ahead on the main road. Its white lights were so bright the rain looked like snow beneath them. I could make it if I didn't panic. The figure leaned a little closer. I felt a cold breath on my neck once, then it pulled back. The smell grew stronger. Pond water, rotting leaves, rust. I spoke, my voice small and flat, as if to myself. I'm going to stop at the station. The figure didn't answer. I kept my tone deliberately calm. People who want to hurt you savor fear. They feed on it. I placed my hands firmly at 10 and 2 on the wheel and fixed my eyes on the silver line where the road met the shoulder. Another message buzzed my phone, but I didn't look. I knew if I turned away too long, the car would drift, and I didn't want sudden movements. The station appeared like a ship in fog, huge floodlights over the canopy, a couple of empty pumps. An old man in a yellow raincoat swept water toward a drain with a long broom. A delivery truck rested nearby. That was my island. I flicked on the hazards. I pulled in too fast but kept control, swung wide around a pump, and pointed the car straight at the glass doors, where the cashier stood behind the counter. He squinted against my headlights, raised a hand. I shifted into park. Before the engine note faded, I unlocked every door and shoved mine open so hard it bounced back. I slid out, turned, and ran for the entrance without shutting it. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see how close the figure was to my seat. The air at my back felt heavy, like a hand almost touching me, then stopping. Rain lashed my face. The cashier's door buzzed and I stumbled inside, leaving a trail of water on the tiles. "Someone is in my car," I said. My voice sounded too clear in the silence. The cashier stared at me. I pointed at the back seat. "I don't know how long they've been there. Please call the police." The cashier picked up the phone without asking questions. The man in the yellow raincoat put down his broom and took a step toward the entrance. I turned for the first time. My car door was still open. The interior light carved a small glowing cave over the front seats. The back seat was dark. No one had come out. Rain pounded against the seats and carpet with a dull thud. Water trickled down the door and pooled underneath. That gaping opening twisted my stomach. It looked like a mouth. The three of us stood frozen, staring. I took 2 cautious steps toward the door, but stopped when the cashier said, "Sir," in a warning tone. In the background, the operator was asking for the address. I never took my eyes off the car. I didn't want anyone to shut the door. If it closed, I'd never know. If it closed from the outside, it would look normal, and maybe later I'd trick myself into forgetting. The man in the raincoat looked at me, nodded, and then did something simple and brave. He grabbed a flashlight from a shelf near the window and ran out into the rain. He kept the beam low, not challenging, just searching. He angled the light toward the back seat from the side. The beam traced across the soaked carpet, the back of the passenger seat, and finally the dark recess where feet would go. The light caught droplets clinging to the fabric, making them shimmer. It also revealed something else. Mud smeared across the back of the driver's seat, 4 long streaks like dragged fingers, dark, fresh, and wet. They ended at the height of my shoulder blades. The man stepped closer, peered inside, then jerked back, shaking his head. He glanced at the cashier and made a sharp hand motion, as if saying, "Close it. Close it." The cashier locked the store door. My mouth went dry. For a second, I thought I saw movement in the back seat, a shadow folding in on itself, but rain and light could deceive. The man in the raincoat didn't wait to show me more. He hurried back inside. "The police are on their way," the cashier said. "Don't go out there." I stood trembling, not from cold, but nerves. Rain drummed on the metal roof. My damp shirt clung to my skin. My hands quivered so much I shoved them into my pockets. We all stared at my open car like it was a stage. I tried to retrace the timeline. I had parked, left the engine running, and gone to the porch. Maybe I forgot to lock the door out of habit, focused instead on not slipping on those steps. The porch light flickered. Someone was inside that house, I heard them. But maybe not. Maybe they pressed against the wall, waiting. When I ran back through the rain, they could have moved around the other side, fast and silent, spotted the open car, and slipped into the back seat while I wiped my face and fumbled with my phone. The rain would have drowned out their steps. The darkness would have cloaked their figure. They waited for me to start driving before moving. The cashier asked my name. I told him. He asked if I wanted to call someone. I didn't. I only wanted to hear sirens. They arrived slowly, slowed further by the storm. Blue lights flashed against the wet asphalt, turning the rain into a curtain of color. When the officers entered, they smelled of soaked nylon and cold air. We pointed at the car. They communicated with simple gestures, moving like they had done this 1,000 times. One took the far side, another my side. A third crouched behind for cover. All carried powerful flashlights. "Stay inside," one ordered without looking at me. They advanced on the car, beam slicing the interior in sharp white cuts. Front seat, back seat, floor, ceiling, back again. The officer on my side leaned in and shut off the engine. The car fell silent, and the rain grew louder for an instant. He pocketed the keys. "Clear," he said. They checked the trunk, then underneath. Nothing. No one. Just soaked seats and that stench of stagnant water. They closed the doors and one officer handed me the keys, only to tuck them away again when he saw my hand trembling. "We'll hold on to these for a moment," he said calmly. "All right?" I nodded, though my body didn't believe me. My mouth was dry and my skin felt too tight, like a shrunken garment. Another officer shined his light on the back of the driver's seat, where the muddy streaks were. He didn't touch them, just studied. "Looks fresh," he said. He traced the line down to the floor. There, clumps of dark leaves clung to the carpet. Not the crisp kind from a yard, but the slimy kind you find in a ditch. He nudged one with the tip of his flashlight, and it stuck. Black, fibrous. They filed a quick report under the station canopy. The cashier printed camera stills and promised to send the digital recording once the manager arrived. The footage showed what we already knew. Me pulling up, the door swinging open, my sprint inside. Before that, in the trees and road, nothing, just rain. One officer asked if I wanted them to search the area. I said yes, though I doubted anyone would linger in a place so open and brightly lit. People like that prefer blind spots. They walked the edges, beam sweeping toward the drainage ditch. The light caught the grate, the water rushing hard, but nothing more. Meanwhile, I checked my phone again. There were 2 new messages from the customer. "That's not me at the doorbell. It's someone else. Don't go back." And then a minute later, a screenshot from the camera. It showed a different porch, not the one I had been at. Brick with a doormat bearing a surname I didn't recognize. In the foreground, very close, a figure in a dark hood. The face wasn't visible, just soaked fabric, and if you zoomed in, a lock of hair plastered against a cheek. The timestamp was minutes after I left that house. The text read, "Who is this?" I replied, "That's not me." 3 dots appeared, then nothing. The officers came back drenched and empty-handed. They told me to get the car cleaned and aired out. It wasn't official advice, just a practical suggestion. They added that I should call if I remembered anything new. They handed me a card with a case number, and one of them looked at me a second longer than the others before saying, "Always lock your doors." He didn't say it as a scolding, but as someone who understood how easy it is to forget in the rain. I drove home with the windows cracked open, though cold, damp air rushed inside. Every drop that slipped through felt like a finger tapping my shoulder. I checked the rear-view mirror constantly, even knowing no one was there anymore. The smell faded, but it never vanished completely. It clung to the fabric. At home, I took a long, hot shower. I set my shoes upside down to drain. My phone sat face down on the counter, but I kept flipping it over, waiting for another message from that customer. None came that night. I tried to sleep and couldn't, not because of one clear thought, but because of dozens of flickers replaying in my head. The porch light flickering, the faint jingle behind the door, the silent figure in the back seat, the muddy streaks on the seat back like fingers, the smell. Above all, the smell. The next day, I took the car to a wash and pulled out the floor mats. Under the driver's seat, I found a piece of thin plastic rope, the kind used to tie bundles of wood or mail. One end was cut. I stared at it for a long time, then threw it away. Maybe it had been there for months, and my mind, desperate for a story, only noticed it then. Or maybe it had slipped out of someone's pocket. I don't know. I sent what I found to the police, and they thanked me. I checked the app records. The order was marked as canceled at a time that didn't match the notification I had received. The help chat sent me a generic message about technical issues during severe weather conditions. They refunded the customer and paid me half the trip. It felt ridiculous and, in a way, ironic. I didn't argue. I kept delivering because rent doesn't pay itself and there's always another shift. But I changed my habits. Since then, I park under the lights, even if it means getting wetter. I lock the doors even when the porch is right in front of me. I check the back seat before getting in. I still do, even on clear days, with warm summer air baking the car into hot plastic, even if I only stop for 2 minutes at a store. Sometimes people ask if I think it was the homeowner messing with me, a thief, or someone looking for a ride who chose the worst method. I don't know. I don't think about a specific person. I think about the space behind me when I drive at night, about the feeling of someone leaning close enough to shift the air. I think about the smell of old water, a smell like memory. A week later, I got one last message from the same customer. No text, just another Ring camera image. It looked like the same hooded figure, but farther back this time, partially cut off by the frame, as if it was careful not to get too close. The time, 3:12 a.m. The customer added no words. I stared at the photo until my phone shut off on its own. Since then, I've stopped doing late-night deliveries. Story 2. It was a Thursday night in late October, and the rain was pounding hard against the windows of my apartment. I live in a quiet suburban complex, in a small town on the outskirts of Chicago. Nothing fancy, just a 3-story building mostly inhabited by families and older folks. I'm a single mother, 32 years old, and I work as a nurse at the local hospital. My daughter Hina is 7, and she was already asleep after a long day of school and homework. I had just finished washing the dishes from our simple pasta dinner when the pounding on the door began. At first, I thought it was the wind rattling something, but no, it was knocking. Insistent, desperate knocks on my door. The storm roared outside, thunder rolling every few minutes, and the lights had flickered once or twice, though mine were still on. I dried my hands with a towel and walked to the door, my heartbeat quickening. I'd heard stories of burglaries and strange people wandering around, especially at night. I peeked through the peephole. It was Mrs. Hargrove, my elderly neighbor from across the hall. She was in her 70s, living alone since her husband had passed years ago. Sometimes we chattered in the building's laundry room. She had Parkinson's, so her hands always trembled a little. But tonight she was soaked head to toe. Her gray hair was plastered to her face, water dripping from her coat. She knocked again, her lips moving as if saying, "Help, Mrs. Hargrove." I spoke through the door. "What's going on?" "Please, dear, let me in. The power's out in my apartment from the storm. It's flooding." Her voice sounded shaky, as always. I hesitated. Hina was asleep, and I didn't want to wake her, but I couldn't leave an elderly woman out in a storm either. The building's security wasn't much. A front door with a buzzer that half the time didn't even work. I unlatched the chain and cracked the door open. "Oh, thank you, Ev," she said, pushing quickly inside. She always called me Ev, though my real name is Eva. I never corrected her. Water dripped from her coat onto the entryway carpet. "The power's out. I can't see a thing." My phone's dead too. I shut the door behind her and locked it. "It's all right, come in. Dry yourself, I'll get you a towel." She nodded, but her eyes darted around, scanning my living room. A small couch, the TV, Hina's toys scattered across the floor. I went to the bathroom for a towel and handed it to her. That's when I noticed. Her grip was firm. No tremor at all. Mrs. Hargrove's hands always shook, badly enough to spill coffee whenever we talked. Maybe the cold steadied her, I thought, dismissing it. "Sit down," I said, pointing to the couch. "Would you like some tea?" "The storm's pretty rough." She smiled, though it looked wrong, too wide. "Tea would be lovely, dear. Chamomile, if you have it." I went to the kitchen to boil water. When I glanced back, she was sitting straight, not hunched as usual from her bad back. Her coat looked like her old wool one, but it fit oddly, too loose. "How did you get so wet?" I asked, making conversation. "Did you go outside?" "The hallway window was open. The rain came in," she replied. But I knew there were no opening windows in our hallway. They were all sealed for safety. It struck me as strange, but I brushed it off. I brought her the tea, which she drank carefully without spilling a drop. Her nails were clean, immaculate. The real Mrs. Hargrove always had dirt under them from hours in the community garden. We sat in uneasy silence as the rain battered the windows. She kept glancing at the clock on the wall. "Do you mind if I stay until the storm passes?" she asked. I nodded, though unease crawled over me. "Of course, but Hina's asleep, so let's keep quiet." "Of course." She set her cup down with a perfectly steady hand. Time dragged. I turned on the TV, keeping the volume low, some old sitcom for background noise. She asked about Hina, about school, normal questions, until she said, "You know, I've always admired how you manage on your own. Without a man. It must be hard." It was a compliment, but Mrs. Hargrove never spoke like that. She usually complained about her aches or the noisy kids upstairs. I forced a smile. "Yes, sometimes it is." Around 10 p.m., she asked to use the bathroom. While she was gone, I checked my phone. No missed calls, though the signal was weak from the storm. When she came back, she seemed more relaxed. Too relaxed. She sank into the couch like she owned it. "Are you feeling all right?" I asked. "Just tired, dear." Age catches up. I decided to call the building manager, Mr. Patel, to ask about her apartment's power. But before I could, my phone rang. It was him. His name lit up on the screen. "Hello, Eva," he said urgently. "We have an emergency. Mrs. Hargrove was found unconscious in her apartment 2 hours ago. Paramedics took her to the hospital. Looks like she fell. Maybe hit her head." My stomach dropped. I looked at the woman on my couch who was watching me with narrowed eyes. "Are you sure?" I asked, turning away. "Yes." The door was ajar. A neighbor heard a thud. We checked the security cameras. Wait. There was silence, muffled voices in the background. "Eva, the video shows someone in a coat just like hers knocking on doors earlier. But it wasn't her. A stranger. Probably stole her coat. A tall, thin woman. The police are on their way. Lock your door." I hung up, hands shaking. The imposter was already on her feet, blocking the entrance to the kitchen. "Everything all right, dear?" I backed toward the hallway, toward Hina's room. "Who are you?" She tilted her head, smiling that eerie smile. "What do you mean?" "I'm Mrs. Hargrove." "No, the real one's in the hospital." "You heard it yourself." Her expression hardened instantly. The sweet old act vanished. Her eyes turned cold. Smart girl. But too late. I lunged for the door, but she was faster than I imagined. She grabbed my arm with brutal strength. No tremor. No weakness. "Let me go," I screamed, hoping Hina would wake, hoping a neighbor would hear. She clamped her hand over my mouth. "Shh. We don't want to wake the little one." Up close, I saw the details I'd missed. Her skin too smooth under makeup, no deep wrinkles. Her hair a wig already slipping. The coat, clearly stolen, with Mrs. Hargrove's initials stitched into the collar. I bit her hand hard, tasting metallic blood. She shrieked and let go. I bolted to Hina's room, slammed the door, and locked it. "Hina, wake up." My daughter rubbed her eyes. "Sweetheart, hide under the bed now." The doorknob rattled. "Open up, Ev. I just need a dry place." I shoved the dresser against the door, heart racing. My phone. I'd left it in the living room. Thunder crashed outside, drowning my cries for help. The door shook under heavy blows, the frame cracking. Hina whimpered beneath the bed. "It's all right, honey. Mommy's here." Then, silence. Too much silence. I pressed my ear to the door. Footsteps retreating. Minutes dragged into hours. Finally, sirens pierced the storm. Police lights flashed against the windows. Shouts filled the hallway, doors opening. "Eva, police, open up." I shoved the dresser aside, cracked the door. 2 officers stood there, guns drawn. "She's inside, the imposter." They rushed in, but the living room was empty. The front door, which I had locked, was wide open. She had slipped away in the chaos. They searched the building and found the real Mrs. Hargrove's apartment door forced open. She lay on the floor unconscious from a head injury. She survived, barely. The coat was gone, but the cameras caught the stranger. A woman in her 40s, known to police for theft and assaults. Her method was always the same: target the elderly, steal their identities, and slip into homes during storms when people were vulnerable. She chose our building because it had no security, no doorman. She attacked Mrs. Hargrove, stole her coat and keys, and knocked on doors until someone opened. I was the first. Hina and I spent a week at my sister's place afterward. I added extra locks, a security camera. But nights like that one, when rain batters the windows, I still check the peephole twice. And I wonder how many signs I ignored before it was almost too late. Story 3. It was a typical rainy night in my small town of Milford, Pennsylvania. The kind where the streets are empty, and the only sounds are the rain pattering against the pavement, and every so often a car splashing through puddles. I'm a single dad, 42 years old, and I share my days with Max, a high-energy golden retriever. He hates being cooped up, so even on nights like this I have to take him out for a walk before bed. It was around 11:30 p.m. that night. My daughter Emily, 10 years old, was already asleep upstairs, and I figured a quick loop around the block would tire Max out. I put on my rain jacket, clipped on his leash, and we stepped out into the rain. It was coming down hard, not a full-on storm, but heavy enough to soak you if you stood still too long. We lived near a small park. Nothing special, a swing set, a slide, a few benches. Right beside it runs the creek that cuts through town, which tends to overflow during heavy rains. As usual, Max tugged toward the park. He loves sniffing the grass there. As we got closer, I noticed something strange. Under the weak glow of a street lamp, one of the swings was moving. Not a light sway. It was pumping high like someone was sitting on it. There was a small hooded silhouette back to me. It looked like a child, about 8 or 9 years old, swinging alone in the downpour. My first thought was, what the hell is a kid doing here at this hour? Where are his parents? Max started whining softly, tail tucked. He's always been gentle with kids, but this time he seemed uneasy. Hey kid, you okay? It's late. You should head home, I called. No response. The swing climbed higher and higher, as if the kid were pumping his legs harder. I figured the rain was muffling my voice, so I stepped onto the waterlogged grass with Max. My sneakers sank into the mud with a viscous sound. Then I saw it. It wasn't just one swing. It was all 4, all of them moving in perfect unison, same height, same rhythm. There was no wind. The rain fell straight down. The trees were still. A chill ran up my back. Physics doesn't work like that. Swings don't synchronize on their own unless someone pushes them at the same time. I was about 10 feet away when I called out again, louder. Come on, kid. It's not safe. I'll help you get home. Nothing. The figure stayed turned away, not stopping. Max growled, low and deep, pulling backward like he wanted to bolt. I pulled out my phone and aimed the flashlight at the swing. That's when I saw it clearly. It wasn't a child. It was a doll. Life-sized, wearing a raincoat and jeans, realistic hair plastered down by the rain. The face was unsettling. Porcelain skin, huge blue eyes fixed straight ahead, and a painted smile. It looked like one of those reborn dolls collectors buy, but bigger, almost the size of a real kid. My heart sped up. I muttered, this is a prank. It has to be. Some teenager hung it with ropes or something. But there were no visible strings and the metal chains were heavy. I took a step back, ready to leave, when Max barked loudly, jerking the leash. I turned to calm him, and that's when I heard it. Laughter. Children's laughter coming from the trees behind the park. Not one voice, but several, like a group of kids playing. But something was off. The sound was distorted, both far and near at the same time, like it was sliding straight into my ears. I froze. Max went crazy, pulling toward home. The laughter faded, then returned, louder, mocking. I swept the trees with my flashlight, but the rain made it hard to see. Nothing there. No kids, no movement. Only darkness and the roar of the swollen creek. I didn't wait around. I turned and walked quickly home, dragging Max with me. My mind was racing. Speakers? Some kind of audio prank? Who would do that at midnight? When I got inside, I was soaked and shaking. I locked the door, toweled off Max, and checked on Emily, still fast asleep, none the wiser. I couldn't get the image of the doll out of my head. I Googled life-size doll on swing prank, but nothing matched. I went to bed around 2 a.m., exhausted but slept terribly. I dreamed of laughter chasing me through the woods. The next day, the rain had stopped and everything seemed normal. I took Emily to school and headed to work at the shop. At lunch, I told my friend Tom. He's lived in Milford forever and knows all the town gossip, what had happened. "What did you see, man?" he said, sandwich halfway to his mouth. I told him everything. The swings, the doll, the laughter. His face went pale. "Dude, you're kidding, right? That park by the creek. You don't know about the accident?" I shook my head. "What accident?" Tom lowered his voice. "Back in 2012, I think. Big storm. The creek overflowed fast. A group of kids were playing at the park after school. The water rose in a flash. Most got out but one kid, Timmy Hargrove, 8 years old, got swept away trying to grab his ball. Drowned right there. They found his body downstream the next day. Total tragedy. The family moved away after." My stomach dropped. "What's that got to do with the doll?" Tom shrugged. "People say weird stuff happens there during storms. They call it the ghost game. Swings moving by themselves, children laughing in the trees. Some think it's Timmy's spirit playing. Others say it's wind and imagination. But the doll, that's new. Maybe someone left it as a memorial, or something macabre." I laughed nervously, but the idea stuck with me. After work, I went back to the park. In daylight, it looked harmless. Kids playing, moms on benches. The swings were still, no doll. I asked a few neighbors if they'd seen anything odd. An elderly woman nodded slowly. "Dear, you shouldn't get tangled up in that. Every few years when the rains are heavy, people see a child on the swings. But up close, it isn't him. It's something pretending. And when you hear the laughter, that's when you run." She told me more. After the tragedy, they added barriers along the creek, but the sightings started afterward. In 2015, a jogger swore he saw a boy swinging. When he got close, the kid vanished. Another time, a cop went to check on laughter and found scattered toys like someone had been playing there. I searched on my phone and found real articles. Flooding in Milford had taken lives before, including the boy in 2012. That night, I didn't take Max to the park. We stuck to the streets. Around midnight, it started raining again, harder. I was in bed scrolling on my phone when I heard it. Very faint laughter outside my window. Max sat up, growling. I told myself it was the wind, but I yanked the curtain shut anyway. A week later, it got worse. Emily came home from school saying her friends told her about a ghost boy who plays at the park, who swings when it rains and laughs if you get too close. She treated it like a fun campfire story. I brushed it off, but inside I was terrified. I didn't want her anywhere near it. One evening, curiosity got the better of me. The forecast called for light rain. I took Max, this time with my phone ready to record. The park was empty at dusk. The swings were motionless. I walked to the set, swept my flashlight over it. Nothing. I sighed in relief and turned around. Then the swings groaned, all of them at once, starting slow and falling into perfect synchronized arcs. Max went rigid, ears pinned, staring at the trees. Laughter clear as day. Ha 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 ha. Like kids playing hide and seek. I ran, dragging Max along. At home, I checked the video. Shaky, but the swings were clearly moving on their own. The laughter was barely audible, but it was there. I kept asking around. At a restaurant, a man told me his grandfather had found Timmy's body in the creek, still holding an action figure, like he was still playing. A woman mentioned that some grieving parents commission realistic dolls of their deceased children. Maybe someone had left one at the park, but swings moving with no wind. Science doesn't cover that. The worst night came 2 days ago. Storm warning, heavy rain. I couldn't sleep. Emily was out cold. Max scratched at the door, desperate to go out. I clipped him on the porch, but he pulled toward the park, whining. Against my better judgment, I went. The swings were out of control, higher than ever. And there it was again. The doll, hooded, swinging. I didn't get closer. Then the laughter started, louder from everywhere, and whispers, "Come play with me." I ran back, secured the house, and called Tom. He said, "Stay inside during storms." It's not worth it. Now I avoid the park at night. Emily thinks I'm overprotective, but I know what I saw, what I heard. Timmy's gone, but something lingers by the creek. An echo of play turned into something twisted. If you ever take your dog out in the rain and see a child swinging alone, turn around. Don't go closer, because up close it's not what it seems. And when you hear the laughter, it's already too late.